Hello and welcome to Community Bookstore's virtual event series. I'm Stephanie Valdez and I'm the co-owner of the bookstore. Tonight we have Mary Dixie Carter and she's joining us to discuss her novel, The Photographer with Faith Salie. Community Bookstore will be celebrating 50 years in business this fall, and we credit the support of readers and writers for this milestone. Thank you so much for spending an evening with us. Now for some housekeeping. You should be able to see and hear our presenters, but they cannot see or hear you. If you have any questions, you can please click on the Q&A button, which is down here at the bottom of the screen to submit them. We'll ask those at the end of the program. There will also be a fun raffle of this camera.
Oh, it's pink.
It is pink. Surprise. There's also a chat button up here at the bottom through which I'll be posting a link to purchase tonight's book if you haven't already. Mary Dixie has graciously offered to come by and sign your orders. And finally, we've scheduled a whole host of spring programming so you can look at our website or sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date. For instance, on June 3rd, we have Ocean Bong. And now I'll tell you a bit about tonight's guests and we'll get started. Mary Dixie Carter's writing has appeared in Time, The Economist, San Francisco Chronicle, the Chicago Tribune, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and more. She worked at The Observer for 5 years as the publishing director and has worked as a professional actor. Mary Dixie has an honors degree in English literature from Harvard College and holds an MFA in creative writing from the New School. She lives in Brooklyn near a community bookstore with her husband and her 2 young children. And The Photographer is her first novel. Faith Salie is an Emmy award-winning correspondent on CBS Sunday Morning and a regular on NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. She's the author of a book of personal essays called Approval Junkie, which is also the name of her solo show, in which she will debut off-Broadway this fall. Most importantly, Faith met Mary Dixie in college where they performed together, most joyfully playing Lucy Van Pelt and Sally Brown in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. I'll turn things over to you, Mary Dixie and Faith.
Mary Dixie,
thank you.
Nobody in the history, thank you, Stephanie, and nobody in the
history
of the role of Sally Brown ever said we had spaghetti at our house 5 times this week as perfectly as you. This is my favorite line, always. Stephanie, I love learning that I'm the same age as Community Bookstore. It's so happy 50th birthday to Community Bookstore. And Mary Dix, I love that Community Bookstore is really your community bookstore.
It is most definitely. I live a couple blocks away and I love going into Community Bookstore and especially, I mean, during the pandemic it was hard, but before that and now starting back up again, I just would go in there to look around and just to be in the store, just feeling the store around me is a wonderful feeling.
Smell of books.
And the children's section is amazing too. And so I go in there with my children a lot and that's been really, really wonderful. It's the best store in the country, perhaps the world.
and speaking of children, your children got to walk by and see their mom's book in the window.
What a thrill that was. So the book is in the window of Community Bookstore and Steve sent me a picture of the children standing in front of the book and that was so wonderful. Oh, they were really excited and I was probably more excited than them.
Those are like bucket list moments in your life, truly. And that's an amazing thing that they get to see that you accomplished that. And maybe they'll get their book signed by the author if they behave.
If they're nice.
So before we get into this, I just want to set the stage a little. First of all, here in New York, where I am, it is now suddenly a kind of foggy, rainy, early evening, which is like the perfect backdrop to talk about this creepy book, which we're going to talk about whether you embrace the word creepy or not. And second, Mary Dixie, do you remember how and why we met?
Well, we met doing the first show with Amy Cabranes, right?
The weirdest comedy ever called The
weirdest
Great
comedy.
American Cheese Sandwich.
The Great American Cheese Sandwich. That was what it was, right? Yeah, that was crazy. But you were brilliant in it. You were brilliant.
Well, thank you. So you played my mother, and we all had random Southern-ish accents from all over the country. So that is how far back we go. Then you were my Lysistrata, or Lysistrata, if one wants to be innovative. And then it was 30 years to this month that we did You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Oh my gosh.
And our Charlie Brown was Mo Rocca, who's going to do your book event tomorrow night. So
that's right.
It's just such a beautiful thing to have things come full circle, and that I get to be here interviewing you about your debut novel. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. It's like an honor and a joy for me.
Now, I think most of the people watching us tonight have not gotten to read your book yet. I am just going to brag. This is what happens. This is called a galley, everybody. This is what happens when you're friends with the author. So I'm sure you're asked this all the time. Can you describe the photographer? How would you sum it up?
So Delta Dawn is the photographer. She takes pictures of wealthy New Yorkers and their children. And at the opening of the book, she goes to the home of Amelia and Fritz Straub to photograph their daughter's birthday party. And she falls in love with the family. She becomes obsessed with this family. And the book is the story of her trying to insinuate herself into the family. And yeah, that's in a nutshell.
How would you describe the genre? Because Mo and I were texting each other. We were like, should we say this is a thriller? Is this a psychological thriller? What would you say, Mary Dix?
Well, interesting question. It's a thriller according to everyone. And so, but I didn't actually set out to write it as a thriller. I just was writing it, and I gave a few chapters to someone, and then that person compared it, I think, to Talented Mr. Ripley. And then when the whole thing was done, I gave it to someone, and that person called it a thriller, and my agent called it a thriller, and everyone else calls it a thriller. So it is a thriller, but it wasn't it was just what I wrote. It wasn't a decision that I made to write a thriller. It was just the story I had to tell.
And are you okay? I mean, this underserves everything that your novel is, but are you okay with creepy? How do you feel about that?
I don't mind the word creepy because I think it's accurate. I mean, I wouldn't want to use only the word creepy, but I think there's something creepy about the psychology of Delta Dawn. And so it's in her, the creepiness is just in her head. A lot of what is creepy about the book is in her head.
And I think it's also about, I mean, you know, the root of creepy is creep. I think it's also about the cadence of the way that the story unfolds, right? So a lot of times we think of a thriller as being breathless. Yeah. And as a reader, and I've heard other people, I mean, we went to college together, so you know I'm a big nerd and I've done all my research. So I've read reviews, I've gone to Goodreads, I've listened to you on podcasts. I know that everyone who's read your book has said, oh my gosh, I couldn't put it down. This was such a quick read, I couldn't put it down. So there's a breathlessness to the reading experience, but the way the story unfolds is a kind of slow motion thriller. At least that was my experience.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
I see what you mean. I think that that's accurate, a slow motion thriller.
Because it's really as much a character study as something that's plot driven, I think.
Right. I agree with you. I think that it is, I think the thriller comes from its first person, and it's following this woman and following her desires and her sort of boundaryless voyage forward, and being in her head and being worried about what she might do, or, you know, so I think the thriller part comes from being worried about what she might do, but it is, I'm interested in this woman. And that's what sort of propelled me to write the book. I'm interested in her and like her outsider mentality, and everything about her is like wanting to belong and feeling like she doesn't belong, and like she's desperate to be part of this family that she sees as glamorous and educated and polished and everything she thinks she's not. And she sees herself as an outsider, and it's kind of self-fulfilling. She does, no matter what happens, she continues to see herself as an outsider, even though she actually is smart and talented, and she doesn't need this family. She is perfectly capable of having a lovely life without them, but she feels that.
I think that description suggests some core insecurity, and yet what's fascinating about the way you portray Delta Dawn is that she presents herself as fully entitled and absolutely secure and driven to achieve what she wants, which is to insinuate herself with this family.
Yeah, so I think it's weirdly both. Have you met people like this? Like the kind of, there's a confidence in one way, but underneath that, and there's an emptiness. I think Delta Dawn is very empty inside, from low self-esteem and low self-worth, and she's sort of assumed this confidence to get what she wants, but I don't think she'll ever really be. I think there's a vacuum inside her.
Before I ask you to read from the book so everyone can hear her voice, I heard you tell a story about the moment you decided to write this book, or like the kernel of
Yes.
where the idea comes from. Please share that story, because that is creepy too.
So I hired a photographer to take pictures of my two children, who, as you know, they're now 10 and 8, but this was a few years ago. And the pictures came back and they were beautiful, and the children were beautiful, but their eyes were cobalt blue, and they're not in real life. And I said to the photographer, I'd like for their eyes to be their real color. And she said, there is no real color. And that stuck with me, that idea, there is no real color. And the thinking behind that, and that's Delta Dawn's thinking, which is like, I just make it what I want it to be. Like, it's irrelevant what the eye color was in the first instance. It's irrelevant. She just changes whatever she needs to, whatever she wants to in the image to make it what she feels it needs to be. And she does that, you know, in life kind of, and in images. She does it both.
Right.
So
reality is what you make it, right? And it is irrelevant to Delta Dawn where she came from. She's going to create, she thinks she can create the life, Photoshop herself into the life she thinks she deserves to have.
Exactly. Yeah, it's irrelevant what the facts are. And they're erased kind of. And then there's no reference point.
Right.
And so the idea of lying to oneself is something that I'm interested in. And she does this to a huge degree, lying to herself. And everyone does some of it, but Delta Dawn goes like way overboard on lying to herself. And someone who's lying to themselves, you can't even have a conversation with them because they've convinced themselves that the lie is the truth. And they really believe it. In Delta Dawn's case, she completely believes she'll believe the new image too. Once she changes the image, she believes in the altered image.
I have to know, when you said that to the real life photographer, what happened? I mean, I would be incredulous and also like, how dare you think you can make my children more beautiful, right? And your children are beautiful. But what did she say? Was there any sort of deference or sheepishness?
Well, no, she changed the eye color back a little bit. She toned it down. Now, and I'm not suggesting that this character is based on her. It was just, that was the moment that I got this idea.
Yeah.
That her saying there is no real color. I mean, just like, wow.
Yeah,
wow,
that's a rabbit hole. That was a rabbit hole down which you could fall to sort of explore someone who experiences the world that way. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone who experiences the world that way. And just doesn't acknowledge any, like, so she enters into this Straub family and she has no boundaries about where she belongs within the family. And she has no boundaries on her behavior. I mean, when she's in a room with someone, she kind of knows how to act. But when no one else is around, she has no limits.
Which is the perfect segue to something I would love for you to read. Can we hear from Delta Dawn in her own voice?
Yes. So I'll just tell you where this appears in the book. Delta is babysitting for Natalie. Amelia and Fritz have gone out and Natalie is sleeping. And so Delta takes this opportunity to look around the house. And at this moment, she is in the master bathroom. Okay. When finished at the mirror, I turned to take in the magnificence of the bathtub. I'd never bathed in such a tub. I considered how much time I had. It was 10 p.m. The Straubs definitely wouldn't return home before 11, and Amelia had indicated it would be later. If I were to take a bath, I would have at least an hour before I'd have to worry about their arrival. I pulled my shirt over my head, removed my bra, and examined my torso in the full-length mirror. I still had a flat stomach and a slender waist. I thought about conceiving and bearing a child. Childbirth can alter a woman's body, sometimes permanently. I sat down on an Indonesian stool and pulled off my socks, my jeans, and my underwear, then stood naked in the lavish bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror, savoring a sense of connection and intimacy with the Straubs, and also the power associated with claiming what I needed. I considered the logistics of my bath. I ought not to use a towel for my bath because I might not have time to wash and dry it. It would likely notice a damp towel or a damp tub. Maybe I needed to wait for my next visit and bring my own towel. The thought of postponing the bath brought my spirits down. I spied a damp towel draped over the towel bar and contemplated using that one. I leaned over to smell it and detected Amelia's musky scent. Still undecided, I returned to the bedroom to study the Straub's bed. A dozen pillows of various sizes and fabrics and in various shades of blue covered the upholstered headboard. I wanted to lie naked under their organic cotton sheets. Thoughts of Amelia and Fritz having sex entered into my mind. Maybe they'd stopped having sex after all the miscarriages. Maybe it was too traumatic for them now. Natalie's face appeared in the doorway. Her body lurched back at the sight of me. Hi, Natalie. I spoke in a calm tone, though a wave of panic ran through me. I spotted a throw draped over a nearby chair. The craziest thing. I wrapped the blanket tightly around my body. Just a few minutes ago, Itzhak vomited. I was downstairs and lifting him off the porch. Awful for him, really. I avoided her eye contact. So all my clothes, I had to clean everything. It was quite a mess, and I'm gonna wash my clothes in the machine. I'll just find a towel until they're dry. Poor Itzhak. Natalie crossed towards me in the direction of the bathroom. I feared she was going to examine my clothing to see if I was telling the truth about the vomit. But she stopped in front of one of her parents' nightstands to check the time. She turned around and walked back towards the bedroom door. Fortunately, Natalie went back to bed rather quickly after a glass of milk. I was madly concerned about how she would relate what she saw. She appeared to believe me when I explained about Itzhak, but I couldn't be certain. Still wrapped in the blanket, I returned to the master bathroom where I'd left my clothes and sent Amelia a text. Can I use the laundry machine to wash my clothes? Unfortunately, Itzhak's been ill. No, did he ruin your clothes? I'm fine. Please use my bathroom to rinse off. The response allayed all my fears and filled me with the same sense of euphoria that I'd had earlier. I placed my clean clothes in the laundry machine with detergent. Then when I entered the master bathroom again, it was not as a trespasser, but as an invited guest.
Despite your mellifluous reading, the sentences in your book, the diction is so staccato. It's so Delta's storytelling is declarative and unapologetic.
Yeah, I think there's something about her frame of mind that I was trying to capture with that rhythm, I guess. And it was not exactly a plan, but I know that that's how it sounded in my head to me, that her voice was so clear in my head, and that's how it sounded. It was there's something a little stilted about her. She doesn't really know herself. There's something kind of stilted about her in all settings. And I mean, I think she's learned she's learned how to say the right thing and maybe do the right thing, but in her head, I think she's like staccato and stilted.
Yeah, it's like uncanny valley, when something is created that's like 97% human, right? That's a little bit off. And even and I didn't appreciate this until hearing you read it. Even the machinations she has to go through to figure out how much time do I have to take a bath? What towel can I use? What's the lie I need to tell? Now what do I do? Do I need to call, Amelia? It's like a compulsive liar, right?
Yeah.
She's not lying in this case. She's pretending this is her life. But one of the ways in which she is one of the most compelling characters I've ever read is that she is so self-aware, like constantly throughout the book, Delta is noticing her breath, is telling herself, I need to take a deep breath here. I need to calm down. If she's noticing parts, like the way your therapist might say, like, okay, when you feel this emotion, where do you feel it in your body? Right. And so she's hyper self-aware in that way. And yet, like you said, she doesn't know herself. She's such a conundrum.
Yeah. Well, I love your description of her. I think that's true. I think she's really smart. Like that's, I think, one of the things I was trying to capture. She's extremely smart.
The word I kept thinking of is perspicacious. Like she's so vigilant and insightful about what other people need that it's almost sinister because she delivers it.
Yes, she knows. Yeah, exactly. She knows what other people need. But she also so this scene is a perfect example of her creating a situation that forces her to come up with all kinds of lies. Like that was so unnecessary. She didn't need to create that situation. where Natalie walks in on her naked. Like,
Well, the other thing that I love about this is that she kind of is having, and this is not the only time in the book, she's kind of having sex with the house. And because I mean, there's another time where she like rolls like naked, I think, on the carpet, and what I love about that is that the way that you depict the house is so vivid that their home, right? Because the Straubs are a couple of architects, their home is like a character.
Good. Oh, I'm so glad you think so. And I think that she's in love with a house. I think she is her attraction to Amelia and Fritz and Natalie, all of them, is like all kind of intertwined with this love of the house and the love of the life. And she's like sexually attracted to it too.
Yeah, it's an interesting, as you mentioned before, she's trying so desperately and unconsciously to fill this endless void that her connections to things are so soulless, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
relentless. I know that you did lots of research on even just walking around Brooklyn. I know that you did lots of research on what beautiful brownstones can look like and the lighting. I mean, your descriptions are they're so evocative. Like, you create such a specific and easy to imagine world. And I know you also did some research on photography. I can't believe time is flying. So I have to tell you what I'm really interested in. How much research did you do on personality disorders?
I did a little bit of research on personality disorders, but I didn't exactly want to get into like diagnosing Delta and diagnosing what her particular issue is. I wanted it because it wasn't super relevant to me or to the story that I wanted to tell. I wanted to tell the story of the outsider and someone who's the like we were saying before, lying to herself and trying to be a part of something. And so I didn't want to. I have ideas in my mind about what her particular diagnosis would be, but I didn't want to even label it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that also probably comes from your acting background, which is, it doesn't help to sit down with a psychiatrist before you play Blanche Dubois and say, like, what is she? Is this borderline personality disorder? Is this narcissism? What is this? It's to allow a character to live through you and embrace her for all that she is, which the way you talk about Delta, Dawn, it sounds like she kind of spoke to you and through you, because I know you're nothing like this. That's what's so impressive, Mary Dixie. For everybody watching, like, this is in no way remotely autobiographical. And that's why I was like, how did you research this? Who do you know who's like this?
So you are right that my approach to this character is very similar to how I would approach acting and a performance. It's the same, like all the muscles or skills that you would use to find a character in a play or in a film. Same thing that I used to kind of get into the body of Delta and the head of Delta and just allow her to speak to me and not dictate what she does, what she says, like she's running the show. And I didn't plan the storyline. I really did not. I let it go.
Were you sometimes like, lady, like talking to, were you sometimes like, lady, you're what? You're I mean, you're so audacious. Did that sometimes happen?
Yes. Sometimes I would like laugh to myself a little bit while I was writing it. when she does some of the really outrageous things, sometimes I would kind of laugh to myself. But it's also Delta, it's all comes from a place of pain. So it would amuse me at one moment, and the next moment, there's something very dark about it because all of her stuff comes from a place of pain. And I'm hoping that the reader, though they may recognize how destructive she is and also, but that they'll also connect and understand her on some level, that they'll empathize, feel for her. Because, so I'm nothing like Delta Dawn, that's true, but the outsider feeling, which I think every person has at some time in their life, some people more than others, and sometimes people have that outsider feeling even when the external circumstances wouldn't dictate it. So that is interesting to me, that outsider feeling. And obviously in Delta, it really gets carried away, but I've felt like that at times. And I think everyone has felt like that at times, that desire to be a part of something that, and the photographer as sort of a metaphor, she's outside of it,
Yeah.
she's looking in, and there's something between her and the scene. And so she's like literally blocked from being a participant by the camera.
Yes, and then the photoshopping and filtering and changing, the altering that she does makes her feel like she is then a participant in something
Right,
that never
yes.
happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then without giving too much away, she actually uses her body in the most fascinating way to lose her outsider status. And that's not a euphemism for having sex with the house. Delta Dawn is such a specific name for a protagonist or anti-protagonist, either one, right? Our complicated main character. And you have written about what I think is fair to call the burden of your name. Was there a connection there for you when you decided to name her Delta Dawn?
There is a connection, yes. So there were a couple of things that brought me to the name Delta Dawn. One is the song Delta Dawn. The woman in Delta Dawn, I feel like the lyrics kind of go with this character a little bit. And there's parts of those lyrics that felt right. I mean, in just the association, more than any specific details about those lyrics, just the association. And then the second thing is, yes, my name, which is a very Southern name, a double name, is unusual in New York and in Los Angeles, and those are the places that I've lived mostly. And so there's a way that it's like, it makes you a little different, and it kind of marks you a little bit. And I'm not, so for Delta Dawn, I wanted that fish out of water. I wanted the fish out of water feeling that a name like Delta Dawn, which is so specific and kind of odd, would that it would keep her from belonging in, there's a lot of things that keep her from belonging in Brooklyn, but that's just one of them.
Mary Dixie wrote a really vulnerable and even funny in parts and moving essay about this in Time magazine about your name. So once you're done with the photographer, you can go Google that essay that you wrote. In many of the reviews I read, and by the way, they're all good. Don't read your own reviews. That's a waste of your life. But I'm just telling you, they were glowing. These are amateur reviews on Goodreads. People kept talking about how they loved the way you read the audiobook.
Oh, good. I'm so glad people say that. I'm so glad.
And I loved hearing you read just now. It adds such a humanizing element, because as I said, when people will find this out when they read, there is this sort of staccato cadence, to the sentence structure. And I just wonder, when you had the experience of reading your own audiobook, were there any revelations for you?
Interesting question. There were moments where I reached a sentence and was like, oh, I could have phrased that a little better. Do you know what I mean? Because when you're narrating and saying it out loud, then you hear it in a different way. And so there might have been moments where, as I went through, like, yeah, I could have tweaked that sentence a bit. And let me see. So not exactly, because I understood the characters. I feel like I understood them pretty well before I even started the audiobook. But it did, I think Natalie, I understood some things about her, or felt like I understood some things about her, interpretation of her that maybe I didn't while I was writing it. But I really enjoyed narrating the audiobook. That was so much fun. And well, maybe fun is not even the right word, but
gratifying, right?
It was gratifying. It was really gratifying, because it was like my acting background and my writing this novel, and it all was like, it felt like a cohesive thing. So I was thrilled that I had that opportunity to do it. And and it was a joy. It really was.
I'm so glad you had that opportunity. That's another bucket list thing, is to read your own work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with process. So I remember when you, when I remember first hearing about this book in April of 2019. I asked you what you'd been working on, and you're casually like, "Oh, I wrote a book about a photographer," and I was like, "This sounds amazing. I want to read it." And it wasn't even called The Photographer then. And so I'd love to know, in its iterations, what changed, as you gave it to readers, as you gave it to an agent and an editor. Was, for example, it was always in first person, I assume?
So it was always in, and also, so Faith, just so everyone knows, Faith is the person who introduced me to my amazing agent. And that was like, that when we talked about that, I remember you saying, we began that conversation. But anyway, what changed? So it was always in first person. The character of Delta, if you can believe it, I toned her down a little bit.
Can you give us an example of something that was too outre?
So I did want the reader to feel for Delta. And so there were a few places where she did or said something that I was scared that a reader would just kind of distance themselves because it was like unkind. And yeah, she does a lot of awful things, but there were certain things that she said about people, or things that she said about people perhaps, or her inner monologue that was worse than what's there now. So I did pull back on her a tiny bit. I also expanded the character of Ian.
We should tell everyone that's someone Delta uses for relationships.
Yes. For her means. And then some of this was in the process of like some working with my literary agent and then working with my amazing editor. The expanding the character of Ian was one thing that we worked on, and I think deepening certain things with the relationship with Amelia and Delta. So Amelia is the mother, and Delta is really totally in love with Amelia. And so I worked on that relationship because it was very specific what I was going for. So Yeah. And what else did I change along the way?
It was called Photoshop at one point, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. It was called Photoshop, but we couldn't use that title. I'm actually happy that we got to the title, The Photographer, but we, because of Adobe Photoshop, we couldn't, we wouldn't be allowed to use it. So, so anyway, yeah, Photoshop was the title, and I made it perhaps a little bit longer. One thing is I tend to write really short, and I think that comes from doing a lot of plays. I think it comes from maybe from reading a lot of plays and being in plays, that I write very short and don't always, and the dialogue leads me, and I don't always fill in the world around the characters as well as I should. Because what comes quickly to me is the dialogue. And then the other things I need to work harder to get like, what are we seeing in this room? That kind of stuff. I need to work a little harder at that.
You know, you're truly masterful. I can't say, everybody who is going to read this, you're in for like such a treat, because you're so masterful at creating this woman. Like, I found myself rooting for her, and being appalled by her, and being fascinated by her. And I even made a list of like my adjective list. It was, or maybe these aren't adjectives, maybe these are nouns, but like what I felt was like, I felt awe. I felt awe at her audacity. I felt astonishment, disgust, respect. Like, at some point it's like, dude, like, you've got a goal and you're doing, and fascination. And there are those moments, and you mentioned this earlier, we talked about her smarts and her perspicacity, and she is beautiful. Now, it's obnoxious that she tells you she's beautiful, right? She tells the reader and the way she tells you she's beautiful is to compare herself, to Amelia, and point out that she's more beautiful, right? In her mind, not out loud. But she is all the things. And so the pain, you create enough empathy that the pain for the reader is to realize, like, oh God, if someone had just ever loved you for real, or you had ever learned to love yourself, like, the world would be your oyster.
I'm so happy that you say that. I mean, all these things that you are saying, I'm so glad that you had these responses, because that's exactly how I feel about Delta too. Like, the world should be her oyster. That she should have every path open to her, but she's so self-destructive, destructive and self-destructive, and kind of thwarting herself at every moment.
And even, this is what's crazy. This is why this is such an amazing novel. Even as she's self-destructive and destructive, she's succeeding at getting what she wants. I know everyone's like, wait, how? You'll know when you read the book. It's just masterful. I have a few more selfish questions that I want to ask, but I do want to look at some of the Q&As here. Okay. Congratulations to my great American cheese sandwich wife and daughter from Donald Britton. Hello, Pa. And Rahel Ron is saying, so exciting to see my old camp friend here, and I can't wait to read the book. And Rahel is going to buy it from Rahel's local bookstore in LA. Oh, it's Rachel. Okay, no one. Oh. And then in parentheses, it's Rachel, not Rahel. So I thought I was like crushing it on some Hebrew name, but it's apparently Rachel. Does that make sense now? Your friend Rachel?
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay, good. What would you characterize your relationship with Delta Dawn as? Like, how do you feel? How do you feel when you think of her?
Well, so it is what I identify with her in certain ways. I understand her. I am not suggesting that I'm similar to her, but I do understand her. I understand her feeling like an outsider because, and that's something I'm just interested in it. I'm interested in that outsider feeling, and I've had it in the past, and I feel like everyone's had it at some point. And bringing it on herself, the outsider feeling too. But it isn't necessarily, there's no reason it needs to be that she's the outsider. She just creates a situation where she is.
What was the most, I mean, this is a project that you've been working on since when? Are we at 3 years now or more?
So 3 years, but then, I think that's probably not including the whole process of working with my agent and getting published. And so 3 years was probably on my own 3 years. And some of that time was in a more focused way and some was a less focused way.
And what was the most challenging part?
Finishing it was definitely the most challenging part.
You mean speculatively, like way before you ever showed it to your agent, right?
Finishing it, yes, on my own, finishing it. Because it's like, it does take, you think to yourself, well, you need to have some confidence in what you're writing. And it's hard to have that when no one, you're not getting anything back from the world. So you're just writing and hoping. And so having just continuing to work on something that you're not really sure whether it's going to succeed. You're not really sure if you're ever going to be able to sell it or get it published. And you still write through to the end. It's hard to do. It's hard to make yourself do that. And I'm glad that I did, but it definitely, that was, there were times when it was challenging and times when I was like, no one's ever going to buy this. What's the point?
And now your kids bought it. I don't know if they should read it yet, but they bought it.
No, they're not going to read it until they're 21. I've told Eleanor she's not going to read it until she's 21.
That's solid. I think that's the same I should put on my memoir for my children. They don't need to know how I lost my virginity. I think, speaking of children, I think you have a very fun hat out of which to pull a raffle ticket.
Yes.
Prop comedy. Come to Mary Dixie for prop comedy. There we go.
So this is Henry's costume for his clown costume for Halloween. And inside are all the names. And I'm going to set all the names of people who registered who might win the prize. And I'm going to close my eyes and pick a name, and then I'll read it aloud.
You're very scrupulous. You really are closing your eyes. Okay. I'm giving you the drum roll.
Steve Rohr. Yay, Steve Rohr.
How do you spell roar? Please tell me it's like lion, R-O-A-R.
R-O-H-R.
That still counts. Yay, Steve Rohr. You get a pink camera, Steve Rohr. What did you learn from, like, how did your photography research inform the writing?
So I took a photography class while I'd already written quite a bit before I took the photography class. So I sort of knew what I was looking for, the information that I needed and wanted. And I'm not a good photographer. I just took a class that would help me understand some of the concepts and use some vocabulary. So that's, and I love photography, and I wish I was a terrific photographer, but I also took a small Photoshop class to give me, again, the same thing, a little bit of vocabulary. And then whenever so if I came to a point in the book where I really wanted Delta to alter a photo in a very specific way, I knew how I wanted her to alter the photo, then I would research, how does one do that? If that's the goal, like how does one alter it in this specific way? And I would come up with the tools that you could use to do it. And then I did ask a couple of friends to read it and see if it sounded solid and credible. So I hope that it does. I'm sure that there are certain things that real true photographers may see some things that don't feel accurate, but I hope for the most part it's credible.
What color did you make your kids' eyes?
What? Oh. What color did I make their eyes?
Yes, you kept them true. So yes. What are you working on next?
I am working on another novel. It's very early, so I can't say much, but I think there's an outsider theme again in this second novel, and it's a female protagonist. Main character is a woman. And I wish I could say more, but it's too early to do so. But I can say that there is that the photographer is being developed into a TV series, and unfortunately it has not been announced, so I won't expand on that. But hopefully I'll be able to share some details soon.
So you can't say who is helming the series? You can't say who is gonna play the, I mean, is it like Pammy Padams, somebody that rhymes with that, or like Zitherspoon, does it rhyme with that? Any are we in the right area? Emily Blunt?
Oh, it's I can't say. I said I wouldn't say anything.
Does it make you happy when you learn the casting? Were you like, oh
no, there's no casting yet.
Well, then they can cast you. All they need to do is listen to the audiobook.
I have such faith in the people who are doing this series adaptation. I think so highly of their work. I feel really confident that it's going to be excellent. And that's a great feeling to have. And they're interested in my thoughts and everything, and that's awesome. But I do feel like even, whatever they do is going to be good. So I'm excited about it. I'm super excited about it.
Mary Dixie, I like you, I have a graduate degree in literature, and there are not many finer moments in life than reading an incredible book. Perhaps reading an incredible book with your children, if it's appropriate, is like as good as it gets. And so just on the level of, this is an astonishing novel that, and I know this sounds so hackneyed, but I really couldn't put it down. I was cursing you at bedtime, because that's when I read. It was like the one more page thing. But to be able to see my dear friend of decades, who is always so generous of spirit and so brilliant to achieve something. This is such a big deal. And I couldn't, I'm sorry, the sirens are coming. The emotional police are coming to take me away, if you can hear them, just to prove we're in New York. This is, it's a double mitzvah, as we women who are married to Jewish men say. I'm so proud of you. Congratulations.
Oh.
This is a huge achievement. I'm so proud of you. And I'm so excited for everybody who gets to read this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Well, wait, so I'm gonna hold up.
Oh yeah, show the real cover. Yeah.
And then I'm also gonna show Facebook here too. And Faith has an amazing one-woman show that is based upon this.
Thank you, Mary Dixie. I think I'm gonna ask you to play me though.
Her show's called Approval Junkie, as is her book.
Thank you. And Stephanie, do you want to wrap it up for us?
I'm back. Thank you both so much for joining us. Mary Dixie, congratulations. We can't wait to have you come and sign inside the store. And you can buy the photographer from us. The link is in the chat. You can also go to our website. And thanks, everyone. Good night and be well.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank
Mazel
you.
tov, Mary D.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.